Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Deployed Engineer channel. Today, I have with me Daryl Fung. Daryl is a longtime friend. I met him when I was doing my computer science degree, and Daryl happens to have a master's in computer science and deep learning. He's currently a machine learning engineer at a company that's building LMS systems for really large companies. Daryl has worked at Huawei previously as well, where he's built some interesting systems, and I'm really glad to have him today. Thanks for being on the podcast, Daryl.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Baulik. I've worked with Baulik in like school projects before, and I think Baulik is one of the best person to work with. Such a great personality, great communicator, and I think anyone would be lucky to have Baulik to be on the same team.
Thanks for the kind words. So, what got you started into machine learning, Daryl?
So I started getting some interest in writing code when I was 11 years old. I started off with C++ and just experimenting with coding, writing my own server just to host a MapleStory game. That's the first game I've ever played. And then I really like it. So I started, why not do this in university and start off with this pathway for my career? So during university, when I was looking for specialization, I saw there's a specialization in artificial intelligence, and that kind of interests me because I like the idea of having robots or program that can think by itself. And one summer before starting my co-op program, I started doing a lot of research and taking courses into machine learning. One of the courses that I started taking is in Coursera by Andrew Ng. I think that's one of the best machine learning course that I've taken because it dives deep into the math behind it and really understand exactly what and how to train a model. I really love machine learning ever since then, and it's been quite a big passion of mine. I think there's a huge evolution in machine learning in terms of the timeline. When I first started, most of the machine learning that I've been learning was those traditional machine learning algorithms. They were generally just linear regressions or as support vector machines. Those are the first few ones that I've learned. And I think back then there isn't anything like LLMs. So most of the time when we talked about neural network or deep learning, we'll mostly be talking about something like transformers or neural networks or convolutional neural networks. And back then, when the closest one I've ever seen is like a question and answering LLM. I can't remember the name of it. But ever since then, after 2023, when GPT-3 came out, that's when I started to see a lot of hype around it. Everyone was talking about ChatGPT, and I feel like it started shifting from this training. I think most of the focus started shifting from training just machine learning models, like deep learning models, to prompt engineering to try and dissect the prompt or give it more specific prompts just to make the AI learn better or tailor it to your use case. But here and there so far, I think there has been a lot of evolution, even right now, because of how good AI has become. With AI to do research or to write program or software, I think it has been quite a helpful agent to be by your side assisting you. I do find that using AI to learn materials or to read research paper do help me speed up the process to help me better understand it more in depth as well, because it can kind of highlight some areas that I have missed when I was reading the whole paper.
That's awesome. One of the things that I've thought about for a little while is sometimes if let's say I was working on a project, right? I have to decide between like, okay, should I use large language models to do something like, let's say, vision related and use their existing APIs to build something versus going to pick one of those traditional neural nets to do the work. What's your point of view? Because we are now introduced to abstractions which are easier to use, but like in terms of like just overall application cost, how do you think about that? It's something I'm still trying to understand and learn.
Okay, so that's a very good question, because we do have this kind of problems or instances before that we faced in our workplace. For instance, we had a project before where we had to classify labels. And basically back then we could train a machine learning model to perhaps read courses information or labels or articles and classify them on or categorize them what kind of article this belongs to. Like, does this belong to science? Does this belongs to finance? Does this belong to other different categories? So when LLM came out, everyone was really hyped about it. And anytime this kind of problems arises, our to go would be to, you know what, let's just use LLM to do it, because you could just ask it question and then it can just do it for you. We do find that if we just feed LLM all this data, sometimes it would hallucinate because there's just so much context on the information itself. And I still do find that traditional machine, like training a machine learning models or deep learning models, might outperform it in terms of this specific niche area, like classifying articles or classifying different categories. What we did maybe like a few experiments with our use case where we want to categorize different articles. And we do find that training a machine learning model does outperform when we feed an LLM just information and ask it to categorize it. I think mostly because we are able to fine tune the model to make it specialize in this categorization skills. So I guess to answer your question in that sense, I would try and figure out if that's the most simple way possible to solve a problem. Like, for instance, if you can just write a software to solve the problem, I would probably prefer it that way. If not, maybe train a model. If that can solve your problem, I think that should be perhaps good enough. Only when like it's just such a difficult context that software, just writing code or training a machine learning models can solve the problem, then I would probably lean towards the direction to using more agentic or LLM pathway to solve it. So I would generally try to do it in the simplest way possible, maybe in more logical way, like from software. And if that can't work, then I'll go to machine learning, and then that can't work, I'll move to agentic behaviors.
I think I like that point of view. So what you're saying is like, is it because of like it's just cheaper and it's cheaper and more accurate to go through the first step of trying to build your own, right? So in terms of like this, let's say the like concrete steps. Let's take an example. I want to detect apples in a video, right? Somebody is you have a recording and you want to detect apples. So how would you go about something like that?
That's a good question. For this case, I think using LLM might be overkill. Like those vision models help me detect apples. I would, for this use case, I would probably just use like a CNN network that's pre-trained on maybe ImageNet just to classify or classify if there's an apple in the image, or use any, if you want to do object detection, I'll just use like a pre-trained YOLO model just to solve that problem, because it has already pre-trained it, and I don't have to retrain a model just to detect an apple in the image. So I would, for this use case, I would lean towards this neural networks approach or pre-trained models approach to the use case. In terms of software or coding, we could definitely extract those lines or edges, but I think that might be overkill. We might spend more time just to dissect that, or it might not even give us good performance compared to like a pre-trained model to detect an apple in the image.
Interesting. So, where can somebody? Is there a place they can find cookbooks? I know there is a platform called Hugging Face, but like, how do you technically do it? Let's say now that we have AI and we can use Cursor, VS Code, whatever, a moderately technical person can probably get that working and get AI assistants to maybe build that. So what would be the process? Like where can the person go for an example? How should they prompt and how should they go about trying to build that POC?
So right now, I think it has become much easier for people to just do a POC because of how AI agents have evolved. For my current workflow now, with the help of AI agents, I would, well, if I want to learn while doing it, I would probably go towards Hugging Face and just read about those different pre-trained models and then figure out why a model is better than a different model, just to understand its architecture. And then let's say there's a model that's of interest to me and I would like to use that model. So I would perhaps look through what other people has done with the model and see how they build it. I think a lot of models right now tend to use the Hugging Face APIs. That wouldn't be an issue too, like because Hugging Face API is very simplified to a few lines of code. Also, with the help of AI agents, Cursor, those kind of stuff, I use those examples and ask the AI agents, given this example, and I would like to use this specific model, how can I perhaps classify an apple from an image? And generally my workflow is I would ask it to plan out those code for me or why it designed the way it is. And to learn more about it, I would like to ask it questions like specifically at this part of the section, why would you do this? Or why would you do that? And write the code. And then I would also ask it if there's any other better approach to do it, or why would you choose this approach to do it? I think all this has been a great learning experience and has been becoming really easy to learn while writing code or while reading a new documentation and stuff like that to assist you in targeting a different focus area just to build code. I don't know if that answered your question.
I think it helps. So, is there other resources other than Hugging Face? Like you have a GitHub repo that you love around this. Is there more resources?
Okay. I do subscribe to a newsletter. Alpha Signal is one of them. I think it's pretty good. TLDR is also a good one. I can't remember if there's a TLDR research for AI. I also subscribe to Reddit as well at local LLALM. I think that's what it's called. People post latest research paper or latest articles there too sometimes. And I remember seeing an architecture called DFlash. It's very interesting because it just came out like last week. And because a lot of these LLMs are auto-regressive models, how DFlash solve it is instead of making it auto-regressive, it uses a block of diffusion model. So instead of predicting a token at a time, it does multiple tokens at a time with diffusion models, and that kind of speed up the token generation by like 20 times or 6 times, I can't remember, which is really great. So those are one of the ways I kept up to date. There is also GitHub repos that has awesome LLM or awesome AI agents or awesome AI papers. Generally, anything with awesome in the beginning, it's a good way to keep up to. Every time when I look at those GitHub, I would also look at, oh, when was this updated? Is it updated 2 months or 2 years ago or 2 weeks ago? Those would be helpful to see how relevant the current code is. And other than Hugging Face, GitHub's newsletter, sometimes my friends or my coworkers would share resources too. So I could get up to date with this new AI technology. I have to admit that it can be difficult to follow the trend now because it's evolving so quickly. Every day there's like new technology coming out. And because of how fast it is, every day I would be like, oh, is there a new model today? I have to look and see the newsletter and stuff like that. Yeah, it's quite addictive sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like we're all in this and the rate of releasing better models is getting, smaller and smaller. There's a lot of open source models that are coming out and they're doing pretty good. Have you tried any of them, like the open source model?
I have actually. Actually, just recently I've tried trying to train my own Gemma 4 model. Gemma 4 model just came out. And I've seen some fine tuning, like art trainer. I think that's from I can't remember where it's from, but it's called Agents Reinforcement Trainer. It helps you easily fine tune an open source model. So they have pre-built models inside there too. You could easily fine tune it. I also saw Unsloth Studio. Unsloth Studio just came out recently. So Sloth is a library that helps you train or fine tune an LLM models with speed up. So any LLM models that you train perhaps can reach 2 times more speed up than when it just gets trained by itself. Because I believe it uses maybe some C or Rust libraries. I can't know the specifics of it, but they did optimize the way that they fine tune their models. And Unsloth Studio just came out. It makes things much easier for us to train open source models now. So I did try and train a Gemma 4 models on an agent orchestration dataset because I want to see if I can train a model so that the model can orchestrate different agents better. For instance, if you ask it the questions, it knows which models to direct to. For that use case, I've seen when you fine tune a model, it can increase by quite a lot of margin in their performance. I haven't really finished training the models yet because it takes quite a lot of time and don't have a lot of GPU resources. But yeah, I've touched Unsloth Studio and Art Trainer just to help train open source model easier. There's also Modal. It's a serverless GPU architecture website that helps us train GPUs. Yeah, I've used those as well. Those are very good resources to train models or test out an open source model.
Interesting. How do you come up with the data to fine tune those things? Because you need a significant amount of data to get good outcomes, right?
Right. But there is the data sets that I found was mostly on the Hugging Face. There's a lot of open source, publicly available data set that we have. We could preview it just to see its shapes, its metadata, and then use those to train our open source model or any kind of model you have. So they have made it really easy and very simplified just to easily train a model compared to before. Right now, it's very easily accessible. I think anyone can easily fine tune a model now.
Yeah, that's insightful. I want to ask you a little bit about your opinions on the current state of AI. Do you feel like right now the whole large language model movement is overhyped in the sense that it seems as if that's going to solve all the problems and it's going to lead to AGI? As a researcher, you have probably deeper intuitions than the normal person who is just using those things and going and they probably don't understand the underlying fundamentals that well. So what's your thought and what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's a difficult question to say because LLMs are trained on data. They are mostly trained on. So I'll give you an example. I think there's some research before that I've seen. I haven't dig deep into that research. What the research was stating is that in Reddit, a lot of back then in the past in Reddit, when you ask relationship advice, a lot of the times you don't really get like divorce or breakup. But over time, when you see the trend right now in Reddit, every time when you ask relationship advice questions, they would be like, oh, you should break up or have a divorce or find someone else. So because of how Reddit or this publicly available data set are right now, I think that if we do have LLMs to train on this data set, perhaps if you do ask an LLM relationship advice, well, it has probably a high chance of probability to output an answer similar to what the current situation is. It's just to get a divorce or to leave the relationship. So in that sense, because most of the time LLMs are just thinking of probabilities, looking at the tokens and figure out what's the next best word to output as a probability. Well, it's hard to say for now whether it's going to be AGI, I think. But since everything is working in terms of probabilities wise, I say there's a chance to, but I can't say for sure. It's just hard to say. Based on what the current situation is, it has been performing quite well just by using probabilities. So yeah, I don't really have an answer for that, whether it can be an AGI. Maybe in the next few years, we can see for itself. It's just, I think there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of probabilities just to figure out where it's going.
Yeah. I think a lot of I wouldn't say I'm not a researcher, and so, but I try to read the research from the opinions of researchers. And what I read was that these systems are RL, like reinforcement learning, and wherever, when, and the parts of human knowledge which are specifically over indexed and easily verifiable are the ones that the models get really good at. And one of the reasons why products like Cloud Code and Codex for writing or building coding agents are good versus this models doing, let's say, browser work. I think that in terms of the browser use and browser work, from my understanding, like they do not have the same level of dexterity in terms of using it like a human, right? Because of the way they perceive that kind of a thing. So I think that the RL, like you have to like RL it, like the parts which are RL are based on how much money that an
Right.
economic output
Yeah.
the industry gains, right? If there's not as much returns in making a model indexed on, let's say, relationship advice for the model labs, particularly like OpenAI and Cloud, the models won't just get good at those specific things. That's what I read recently. Is a researcher called Andre Karpathy, and he wrote like this thesis, and I kind of went like, this makes sense. It's like these models are really good at coding, but they suck at other parts. So I don't know. But when I read that, I kind of thought, okay, it's like I really don't know then if it'll really lead to this outcome.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I think there's a high chance of it because of how it's being structured. A lot of them are like also RL. Like if you do something, you get a lot of good rewards. It's gonna do more of that because it has a lot of rewards on that direction. So yeah, I think that's a fair use of case to say that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Do you have any advice for folks who are in university or not even necessarily university, but somebody who's just interested in research at the moment? Like you've done a few research papers, you've done a lot of reading, and you follow this quite closely. So, do you have any advice on what parts people can focus on these days for people who are interested in research? Where can they get started? And how can they make a progression?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. I'd say one of the most important thing to be good at this is being consistent. So I would say on the first few days or first few weeks that I started, it's really difficult because it's something new that I just started. So, but I would say as long as you stay consistent and have a lot of passion about it. I think passion is important. That's where it helps me stay in this direction. And after the first few weeks or first few months, it will get much easier and it feels like it just pulls you through it. Like you don't have to force yourself just to learn it. And where to start? I would say I think having a good understanding of how it works would be a good start. I want to recommend machine learning course by Andrew Ng from Coursera. That's a very good place to start learning how machine learning works because a lot of the LLMs that's the basis of a lot of how LLMs is trained. And with that being said, I think having that as a start or as a foundation would be a good idea. And then starting to read some research paper too. Maybe can start off with simple ones like how neural network works or attention is all you need is a good research paper too. That's the start of how transformers are. And that's also the building foundation of most LLMs today. I would say convolutional neural network is a good paper to read to see how different kind of structure or different kind of architecture of neural networks exist just so that we're not fixed on one area. And with all this knowledge, I think it helps to give a more creative imagination or creative ideas that we could use different kind of architecture, not just like transformer or CNN. We could use, yeah, it just gives us more ideas or creativity in thinking of a new design or creating our own architecture models. So I would say all this information would be a good start.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. I think it highlights an important point of like there are other areas in ML which are not transformers, which are still AI, but they're not yet explored as much because of the current trends, right?
Right, right. Yeah. There's also other more machine learning models like there's also other machine learning models like linear regression, support vector machines, gradient boosting. Those can give good ideas on how to implement them and then gives a different creativity and combining them with LLMs. Because I know there are some papers that combine different parts of different techniques to improve to create a better performance. So those are very helpful too, I find.
Yeah, thanks for that. One of the things I've been thinking about and asking people is what do they think about 5 years from now? Like, if you're given free imagination and you have to make a decision on what will happen, you have to make a judgment or a guess on what will happen in 5 years in the tech space. What do you think will happen?
5 years from now, things changed so much 5 years before.
Yeah.
It's well from my based on how the trajectory is, I want to say maybe a lot of us would become like managers instead of doing deep into coding. We would be managing a lot of AI agents or reviewing a lot of. So I like to think back then it's mostly assembly language in the past, and then we started to have these different programming languages like C++, Python, just to encapsulate the assembly language. And right now we have AI agents to encapsulate between all these languages too. So I would say maybe 5 years from now, we would use more of our own language to talk to AI agents and review it. Of course, AI agents can hallucinate too, so that's something that we have to be aware of. Always review our code, but I think we would be more of a managers than like software, like yeah, be more of a software managers than before.
I think, yeah, a lot of people point toward that direction. I think the role will evolve towards being more on the side of managing. I'm not sure about the review part. I feel like some people say that the agents will self-review the code, which I think is already happening. There's a lot of venture money that is going into code review, agents to check to index the code and then to figure out if this will break something, and then doing a lot of test driven development. But I still think like there's a lot of legacy software that will most likely not be automatable, just because agents might, maybe they aren't trained on that type of software. So maybe, but I don't know. But there's another school of thought that says these transformers will be able to predict the next bytes. So you have like bytes instead of like writing C or like even writing Python or TypeScript or whatever programming language for people, it'll write bytecode directly.
Right.
Do you think that it's possible?
Well, it is possible, I think, with enough data. Well, if it's trained on, depending on how bytecode works, if it's trained on bytecode and then it have good performance, I think that could work because most of the times it's running in probability and it's running based on what it has seen before. If it can generate like languages, English languages or other different kind of languages and make sense, I wouldn't be surprised if transformers can train on bytecode and make sense out of it.
Yeah, interesting. So at that point, I guess the whole layers of writing software would just go poof, disappear, right?
We'll have to find a different job now.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. Other than that, I'm curious. Like, there's one other thing I've noticed. You have a really good balance of staying fit, and you also. I feel like you're one of the most fit people I know. So how do you keep up with like staying fit and disciplined while you're in this field? Like, do you have like a schedule that works for you or a hack?
Yeah, well, basically, I don't have a fixed time. The only schedule that I follow is like every day I have to work out at least once. Like if I didn't work out today, then I can't. It's difficult. Like it just pulls me towards it because it's a habit right now. So yeah, well, I tend to try and exercise at least once a day. And then for like learning about these things, I think after working out, it gives me like a refreshed mind or I just feel refreshed in general that when I get back home, it's very easy for me to get things in and to learn things. Just feels like it's much faster and easier to learn things afterwards. But yeah, I think a lot of this me staying fit or learning about these things, it's like a habit. So it's in the beginning, it's hard, but once it becomes a habit, I just find it just brings you forward easily.
Yeah, I think the habit forming part is the toughest period, I'm guessing, to
Right.
getting to routine.
Right, right.
Yeah. Um, nice.
I've been switching a lot recently because this AI tools kept evolving. Sometimes well, at one point Claude is better, and then at some other point Codex is better. At some other point Quen is better. Right now, the AI tools that I'm using is personal at work. I would use Claude because it's in the subscription. Claude, I like Claude because it can spawn an agent teams. I could delegate tasks to different agents. One agent would focus on looking for security vulnerabilities. One agent would focus on evaluating test cases and see if there's enough test cases or good coverage. Another agent would assess the code quality of the repository and so on. I find that very helpful. AI tools, personally, I am currently using Open Code and Quen as well. Quen 3.6 Plus just got released recently and it has been doing really well in terms of performance of coding, and at least in my experience too. Open Code is a good one too. Right now, I'm using Open Code with Open Router. Open Router sometimes give you quite a bit of free models. Open Code itself has this Open Code Zen. It has their own free models too to use. Also, there is NVIDIA NIM, NVIDIA NIM. They have very generous requests per minute. I think it's around 40 requests per minute. And they have a lot of these amazing open source models too, like Kimi K2.5, also GLM5 as well. There's also Olama too, Olama Cloud. I think there's GLM 5.1 too. GLM 5.1 is one of the best models so far right now too. I've also experienced with using it too, and it has been doing a really great job. For IDE, I would use anti-gravity just because I have been using anti-gravity, but I think Windsurf and anti-gravity and Cursor are my two go-to, I would say, because I really like the autocomplete that it has. It's pretty nice.
Oh, cool, cool. So you like when you start, let's say you're supposed to build a side project. Let's say you're supposed to build agents. Like, how would you go about that? Do you like do you plan something on a blank document? Do you go to ChatGPT and brainstorm with it, or how do you go about it?
Yeah, I would ask agents to plan it out. Like, let's say if I'm starting a project, I tend to have some features in mind. I would think of those features as MVP and plan and brainstorm along with the models. So I would ask, oh, can you plan this project? I'm thinking of having this feature or that feature. So when it gave me this plan, I would look at it and see if I have any comments. I would also ask what other recommended, like let's say if there's a feature that I'm thinking of, but I'm not too sure about it, I would ask, oh, what kind of other approach or recommendations do you have for this feature? I would tend to like to ask it to evaluate different options. And I think that's a very great way to give me some creative ideas too. And then after planning extensively and reviewing it and making sure that those are the things that I need, I would delegate it to different agents. Like one agent would focus on coding, the other agent would focus on looking at the security side of it, and then another agent would create tests for it, look at the tests and see if there is any good coverage. So after writing code, I follow like a workflow, writing code, reviewing it, and then I would ask the agents to do a code quality review to see if it adhered to like the software engineering principles like dry, kiss, Yakni, or solid principles. And they would tend to figure out how to make things follow these software engineering principles. I would also ask this to make it as simple as possible. Don't complicate things. Do things as simple as possible. And then after that, I would ask it to review security once more because I'm always scared of security vulnerabilities and stuff like that. I would also do a devil's advocate too sometimes. After planning, I would ask it, oh, can you be like a devil's advocate to see if there's any issues with the plan or things that are your concern? And yeah, so I think this have been helping me so far with uh pretty good pretty good development. Also, when pushing to Git has their own models too. I would use those models to verify, like do the same thing to see if there's any issues or code quality issues. Because I think with different models, sometimes they would pick up different things just to get a different approach in solving things or different approach in solving different problems or figure out different problems that other models might have missed.
Nice. Yeah, that's quite a comprehensive way of building software with agents. How do you trigger these multiple agents to do the coding, security, and test? Like, is you just tell the agent to do that, or is there like a specific way you do it?
Okay. So I have skills like agent skills that does security. I have like a prompt itself to do security, like scan for security vulnerabilities. I also have another system prompt, like a skill prompt that does code quality prompts. Other than that, I also have agents too. If I don't want to use those skills, I have specialized agents to do security review or code quality review. But most of the time, I'm just doing this manually. Like after coding, I would say, can you use code quality skills to assess this repository and see if there's any code quality or tech debt issues? And I would I like to learn from it too. So I would review why it thinks this needs to be removed or why it thinks this is not a good code quality just to learn from it. Also for security as well, I do the same thing. And I think that has been pretty helpful in my development lifecycle and also for my learning experiences too.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very insightful. All right. Yeah, I think that's something I gotta try. There's some things here that I feel like I could try and improve on. I usually I don't use too many sub agents. I use like one agent, and doing it that way. Feel it's more manageable for because of the context you need to have that. These sub agents that you run them on separate terminals or separate tabs, or this is just part of one conversation and chat?
It's just one conversation. So I use open code and Quen to do this. So open code, you could ask it to spawn several agents. Like I would tend to ask it, can you spawn these three agents to review this repository, like security engineer, QA engineer, or test engineer, or code quality engineer, or something like that. And then it would spawn a sub process, like as a sub agent, and runs in background and do those findings. So it will spawn these three different sub agents. And after it gets its own plan or feedback, it's gonna return it to the main agent, which I'm currently chatting with. And this main agent would summarize or tell us what these three agents find or found and show up a plan to resolve this. So I think and what's good about this is that you could open each sub agent and see what it has found without the summarized information from the main agent. So I find that very helpful for spawning a parallel agent, like spawn an agent team just to fix or resolve some issues. Because I think they kind of get some context with each other too, with the main agent trying to orchestrate between the sub agents.
That's yeah, I see. That's interesting. I think a lot of coding agents are doing that, the whole sub agent thing, sometimes automatically, but explicitly specifying helps with that, I'm guessing.
I think so far from my use case, I find it helpful.
Okay, so you specify and then it does that, right? You
Right,
know,
right.
yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Because I noticed like some agents just decide to have an internal thought which will trigger sub agents by
Mm,
themselves. But I do feel like maybe specifying explicitly could speed up and trigger them to do the things in parallel because you understand fundamentally how
right.
these things work. So okay. I think that's interesting. Like, how have you like? I think you're one of the few people I've met that has put enough trust on like more open source models to do their coding work. I feel like I'm still in the school where I have access to these state of art models, unlimited use. I've wondered like, have you found there's open source models to be like really good in terms of when you worked with them, like the
Well,
Quen?
so there is one project that I've tried. So there is this open source, I think, the generation model called LTX 2.3. That I want to use that on Modal just to run a serverless GPU. So I have this repository and I asked these AI agents to convert it, like to create a model serverless GPU out of it. So I tested with multiple different LLMs and just to see whether you can build it. And I find that the open source one that I used was the only one that could fix that problem or to convert it to modal. Well, it could be the way I prompted, but it could also not be the way I prompted. But it's only that open source model. I was using Quen, yeah, Quen that helps me fix it, but the other ones couldn't solve it. So yeah,
Claude couldn't solve it?
I don't have Claude. Like
Okay.
it's expensive. Personally, I don't have Claude.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, Claude might. Who knows? They might solve it.
It's interest. Yeah. Sorry?
Oh, I was just comparing between like Quen, BLM, uh, Claude Haiku 4. Claude Sonnet 4.5, I think, or Haiku 4.5 that I was using. But yeah, it's only Quen 3.6 that could solve it.
Wow. So Quen 3.6 could beat Claude Sonnet for that task.
For that specific task, yeah.
That's crazy. Like, it's first person I've heard reviewing the model like that beats something, because most people are even hesitant to try them. I think like they're not, they like the trust isn't just there. It's like
Yeah.
doing, yeah. I do find like I've started trusting GPT 5.4 and Codex a little more. I would love to try using something like Quen to build something and see how it performs. Yeah. Have you tried to build with user interfaces with these things? Like, do you have any tricks to make them interesting? Because they all produce the same type of things.
Well, not really. I generally just tend to ask it, oh, can you make this website? And we'll just create it. Yeah, I don't really have any specific trick. Like if I do find any CSS or any UI that I don't like, I find like a template and ask it,
Okay.
oh, use this instead, or can you follow this format instead? And generally tend to work well for me. So
Okay. I think that's a good take, like using templates or examples of something that you like. Where do you find those templates?
I can't remember the website name of it. I have it bookmarked in my computer.
Okay.
Yeah, there's also CodePen too, CodePen.io, that people release their own public code on UI interfaces.
Right. CodePen.io. Yeah, I've used it a couple of times to try to prototype small components that I want.
Oh yeah, those are
Yeah, I came across one called Awesome. I think it was Awesome. I think Awesome something, like something Awesome front end,
oh,
Awesome front end or something. And I think it's similar to the Awesome thing you said, which has
oh,
like
yeah.
pretty good UI libraries. But it's I think just even searching for it, I think you'll find a lot of repositories with which make it easy now. Cool. I think we've gone to the end of the podcast. Is there anything else you want to share?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, thanks so much for having me for this podcast. I had a really good time with you, Balik.
All right. Thanks for sharing all the valuable insights, Daryl. All right, everyone, take care and bye. See you at the next episode of the Deployed Engineer channel.